more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution.
CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh, and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
The government has lost another $500,000 of our money. Can Jim DeMint kill the law of the sea treaty? Economist Thomas Sowell asks, are race riots news? The government's Chevy Volt has run out of juice, but the news media won't report it. 10 things you must do to defend yourself. Team Obama has welcomed Islamists into their midst, and it's not the nanny state any longer. Now it's the bully state. My name is Howard Riell, and this is Real Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com, and on Facebook, and on YouTube, and on Real TV, and in the book Real Truth, Stay Angry. And, of course, as always, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range on KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM The Lion. Our call-in number, 877-254-7524. My friends, later on in the show, I will have a guest. Andrew Gause will be talking to us about Tax-Mageddon. How will the coming tax hikes affect the economy, your investments, and your pocketbook? That'll be halfway through. Right now, let's hit the news. Item from Michelle Malkin. Yesterday, GOP Senator Jim DeMint announced on the Senate website that he had enough votes to kill the notorious Law of the Sea Treaty. 4 additional senators have joined in opposition to LOST, L-O-S-T, including Mike Johans of Nebraska, Kelly Ayotte of New Hampshire, Rob Portman, Ohio, and Johnny Isaacson of Georgia. With 34 senators against the misguided treaty, LOST will not be ratified by the Senate this year. As I reported back in May, the fight over LOST goes back 3 decades when it was first rejected by President Ronald Reagan. He warned that, quote, no national interest of the United States could justify handing sovereign control of 2/3 of the Earth's surface over to the Third World, unquote. According to top Reagan officials William Clark and Ed Meese, their boss believed, quote, the central and abiding defect was its effort to promote global government at the expense of sovereign nation-states, most especially the United States. The persistent transnationalists who drafted LOST favor creation of a massive United Nations bureaucracy that would draw ocean boundaries, impose environmental regulations, and restrict business on the high seas. They've tinkered with the document obsessively since the late 60s, enlisted Presidents Clinton and Bush, and recruited soon-to-depart GOP Senator Dick Lugar to their crusade. Ignore the mushy save-the-planet rhetoric. Here's the bottom line. Crucial national security decisions about our naval and drilling operations would be subject to the vote of 162 other signatories, including Cuba, China, and Russia. While our sovereignty would be redistributed around the world, most of the funding for the massive LOST regulatory body would come from, you guessed it, the United States. Forbes columnist Larry Bell reports, quote, as much as 7% of U.S. government revenue that's collected from oil and gas companies operating off our coast would be meted out to poor, landlocked countries. This confiscatory act of environmental justice would siphon billions, if not trillions, away from Americans. International royalties would be imposed. An international tribunal would be set up to mediate disputes. There would be no opportunity for court appeals in the United States. So, it's dead. For now. But power-grabbing progressives don't give up so easily. Conservatives must maintain vigilance, unquote. My friends, not just conservatives, every American, no, cancel that. Every human being must maintain vigilance, because even in those pathetic third-world nations that would be receiving money from the United States, exactly how long would they be receiving money once the United States is a broken, bankrupt shell? Why on earth would we cede our sovereignty to other nations, 162 nations, most of which hate our guts? I'll go a step further. What the hell? I'm here to tell you that any leader of ours, any politician who's in favor of the Lost Treaty, who wants to cede sovereignty and put the United States additional trillions of dollars in debt and put us at the whim of countries that hate us, I would say that politician is guilty of treason. And I would like his or her ass behind bars. This is a knife at the throat, not just of the United States, not just of our allies who depend upon the United States, but upon the entire world, which lives one way or another off of the engine of prosperity that we've created and the energy of freedom that we distribute around the country. The Lost Treaty would be a crippling blow, and any lawmaker who wants to cripple the United States not only shouldn't be a lawmaker, but should be behind bars. Item from economist Thomas Sowell. He writes the following: when I first saw a book with the title White Girls Bleed a Lot by Colin Flaherty, I instantly knew what it was about, even though I had not seen the book reviewed anywhere and knew nothing about the author. That's because I had encountered that phrase before while doing research for the 4 new chapters on intellectuals and race that I added to the revised edition of my own book, Intellectuals and Society, published this year. That phrase was spoken by a member of a mob of young blacks who attacked whites at random at a 4th of July celebration in Milwaukee last year. What I was appalled to learn in the course of my research was that such race riots have occurred in other cities across the United States in recent years, and that the national mainstream media usually ignore these riots. Where the violence is too widespread and too widely known locally to be ignored, both the local media and public officials often describe what happened as unspecified, quote, young people attacking unspecified victims for unspecified reasons. But videos of the attacks often reveal both the racial nature of these attacks and the racial hostility expressed by the attackers. Are race riots not news? Ignoring racial violence only guarantees that it will get worse. The Chicago Tribune has publicly rationalized its filtering out of any racial identification of attackers and their victims, even though the media do not hesitate to mention race when decrying statistical disparities in arrest or imprisonment rates. Such mob attacks have become so frequent in Chicago that officials promoting conventions there recently complained to the mayor that the city is going to lose business as such widespread violence is not brought under control. But neither these officials nor the mayor nor most of the media use that 4-letter word, race. It would not be politically correct or politically convenient in an election year. Reading. Okay, we're hitting a break. When we come back, we'll hit the news. We've got a guest, lots of stuff going on. It's Real Truth, my friends. Buckle up.
The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He makes the plans of the peoples of no effect. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen as his own inheritance. Psalm 33, verses 10 through 12.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188. Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
Welcome back to Real Truth. If I've whetted your appetite with the beginning of that column by economist Thomas Sowell, who, by the way, is himself black, then go to my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. You'll find a link to his column. Read it. Share it. It's important news. Now, Charlie McGrath at Wide Awake News is going to talk to us about a war that we're involved with, whether or not we are aware of it. Let's listen to what Charlie has to say.
Hi, my name is Charlie McGrath. I'm the founder of WideAwakeNews.com and a host on the Rinse Radio Network. I bring to you tonight a warning. I bring to you tonight information of a war that is ongoing right now. It's happening tonight as I sit here and make this video, and will happen tomorrow morning when we all get up. But it's not going to be brought to you by the mainstream media, the corporate-owned mainstream media that has a vested interest in you following their agenda. It's not going to be brought to you by Washington, D.C., where we have a hand-picked candidate on the right, and we have a hand-picked candidate on the left, and they're going to debate about anything and everything other than the real important issues, your future. It's not going to be brought to you by the likes of Jamie Dimon, the folks on Wall Street who are engineering this war, who are manipulating the government of this country to write legislation for them. It's not going to be brought to you by the City of London or any other central bank around this planet, because they have a vested interest in you losing. You are the spoils that will go to the victors. What I'm talking about is your very own financial future, your financial destiny. Will you have control over your own destiny, or will a bunch of bankers have control over your destiny? Will you enter into the neo-feudal system? Will you enter into it quietly, or will you enter into it kicking and screaming? Or will you fight for your own future? The International Monetary Fund came out today and lowered expectations across the planet all the way back to 2009 levels, to the beginning of this so-called crisis, this engineered crisis. Now, Lagarde came out and said she really liked what happened in Europe in June when these nations got together and decided to change the ESM, European Stability Mechanism, from an institution that gave monies to governments that were hurting inside of the Eurozone directly to banks. So instead of going to the people, to their governments, and in a sense to the people of these countries, it's now going to go directly into too big to fail institutions. So those banks, private banks, won't fail. This is what came out in June. This is what was celebrated in the mainstream business media as a fact. But the truth is, it wasn't a fact. These representatives still had to go back home, to face a parliament and the people who absolutely do not want the ESM to be used to bail out a bunch of banks. So even though in June it was sold and we rallied because of this new development, it wasn't set in stone. And Lagarde mentioned this today in her news release. She said she was happy with the results of June, but the politicians were not acting fast enough, and we could fall off a financial cliff. Now she turned the target to the United States. Of course, the United States is the largest contributor to the International Monetary Fund, and said if our politicians, if our Congress don't do the right thing, we could go off the financial cliff. Now, what is the right thing according to the International Monetary Fund? Well, the number one thing that was mentioned in this release was that Congress can't bicker about raising the debt ceiling again. See, we went from $9 trillion in debt in late 2007, early 2008, to roughly $16 trillion in debt in 2012. And if we stand in the way of piling more debt on you, then that's going to lead us to go off a financial cliff, according to Lagarde. But every time they do this, every time they raise the debt ceiling, every time they put another $1 trillion on your back, the big fat institutions that we call too big to fail, they do just fine. As a matter of fact, they thrive on this kind of injection of debt. You are the one that suffers. Your freedom is the one that gets taken away. So Lagarde's coming out begging, demanding that we issue more debt onto ourselves. That Europe comes in line and issues the ESM directly to the banks, and the United States raises that debt ceiling so we can go further and further into debt. The number one weapon being used in this behind-the-scenes war is debt. They're using it to control the people of this planet. We need to understand and see this now. And it isn't just alternative media saying this. Richard Duncan on a CNBC interview today that I'll attach to this video, he says that we are on the verge of a Great Depression. We're going to see a credit freeze, and it's going to be a Great Depression that our civilization cannot survive. Economist Roger Nightingale of R&D and Associates said we can postpone it. We have postponed it, but there is no stopping the inevitable. We are going to go into a credit freeze and a Great Depression. This is all by design, and at the end of this day, when we enter into this Great Depression, we'll have all this load of debt on us. We'll have a deflation of assets that you and I own, but these folks who've been sitting here hoarding it in for the last 4.5, 5 years on your dime will be sitting there ready to swoop up and buy up everything or have your so-called politicians pledge everything of national asset to these same scumbag banksters who brought us here in the first place. Stories are attached. It's time to wake up. Seriously, if you don't believe, if you think this is all conspiratorial by now, please don't listen to me. Look into it for yourself. When we're talking about gay marriage and Obamacare, look, these are distractions meant to keep you guessing, meant to keep you mad at the guy who lives across the street from you, meant to get you into a red or blue camp. The reality of it is these people, Romney, Obama, they work for the exact same puppet masters. They don't work for you. Your interest is not at their heart. If it was, we wouldn't go from $9 trillion to $16 trillion in debt. We wouldn't have private bankers issuing the currency of this country. We wouldn't allow these non-elected individuals to run roughshod over our representative government. It's time to wake up and wake your friends up, because this isn't going to just go down this road of papering over and pretending everything's okay forever. In fact, looking at these warnings from the IMF, from our central bank here, from pundits even in the mainstream, they're about to unleash the greatest of Great Depressions. Stories are attached. That's all I got.
And that's all we need. Read the stories that are attached. You'll find a link to this video on my Facebook page. You'll find it at Wide Awake News. You'll find it on YouTube. By all means, find it. Item from CNSnews.com. An audit conducted by the Energy Department's Office of Inspector General was, quote, unable to locate $500,000 worth of equipment purchased with stimulus money by a recipient of funds distributed through the department's Advanced Batteries and Hybrid Components Program, according to an audit report published by the OIG. The DOE said it would not be appropriate to release the name of stimulus money recipients where the $500,000 worth of equipment could not be located. The program was given nearly $2 billion in stimulus funds, quote, to support the construction of U.S.-based battery and electric drive component manufacturing plants, unquote, and of course, stop. Not appropriate to release the name of stimulus money recipients? Excuse me. That's our money that was given to this company, which somehow managed to lose $500,000 worth of equipment purchased with our money. And we don't know who it is, nor do we have a right to know. Who's the thief? I don't mean the thief that stole the equipment. Who's the thief in the government that keeps hiding the identities of people and organizations to whom they give our money? I want indictments. Item from newsbusters.org, Seton Motley reporting. The Jurassic Press is missing much of their reporting on the $50 billion bailout of General Motors. The press is open channeling for President Barack Obama, allowing him to frame the bailout exactly as he wishes in the 2012 presidential election. The president is running in large part on the bailout's $30 billion-plus loss, uber-failed success, and the press is acting as his stenographers. An epitome of this bailout nightmare mess is the electric absurdity that is the Chevy Volt. The press is at every turn covering up, rather than covering, the serial failures of President Obama's signature vehicle. The press has failed to mention at least 5 Volt fires, myopically focusing on the one the Obama administration hand-selected for attention. The press has failed to mention that the Volt fire problem remains unsolved. Is it the battery? Is it the charging station? Is it the charging cable? All of the above? GM and the administration don't know, and the press ain't breaking their necks to try and find out, unquote. My friend, vote for Romney, vote for Obama. It doesn't matter. We are victims of the machine. And until we understand that, the elections don't mean anything. Item from Reuters. Brawls broke out in an Egyptian courtroom as judges tried to debate rulings on Tuesday that could either bolster the country's new Islamist president, Mohammed Morsi, or undermine him in his power struggle with the military. Stop! My friends, Hillary Clinton, on her own authority, okayed $1.3 billion in aid to Egypt just the other day. Egypt, where what passes for a courtroom includes all-out brawls. These are a people weaned on violence and stupidity. They're no friends of the United States of America. In fact, I had to laugh when I heard that Hillary Clinton, our Secretary of State, went to Egypt to address the people, and the people mocked her. They screamed at her. They yelled, Monica. She has been the Arabs' staunchest supporter. She's the one who's giving them over $1 billion of our dollars, and they hate her. They can't stand her. They like her a little bit more than I do, but they reviled her. They yelled Monica in her face. I hope she took something away from that experience. Based on what I know about Hillary, she took away nothing. Item from CNBC. The risk of a new depression, a sustained severe recession, has struck fear into the heart of markets and driven monetary policy in developed economies since the current financial crisis began. We're in a very unfortunate position to be here, Richard Duncan, author of The New Depression, warned on CNBC's Squawk Box Europe on Monday. When we broke the link between money and gold, this removed all constraints on credit creation, he said. This explosion of credit created the world we live in. But it now seems that credit cannot expand any further because the private sector is incapable of repaying the debt it already has. And if credit begins to contract, there's a very real danger that we will collapse into a new Great Depression. If this credit bubble pops, the depression could be so severe that I don't think our civilization could survive it. The explosion in cheap credit has been widely blamed for the global financial crisis, but the debate about how to fix the problem continues. Stop. The explosion in cheap credit is not to be blamed for the global financial crisis. It's the people who engineered it and executed it intentionally. They are to blame for the global financial crisis. And they own both Obama and Romney. Item from the Blank Hits the Fan Plan website. At first glance, a statement like this brings up thoughts of the government coming for all freedom-seeking people. The statement, they will take everything if you don't stop them. In actuality, this is about your neighbors and those in your community that will ruthlessly mob up and literally storm your own home for what you have after a long, drawn-out disaster, perhaps sooner. It is a fact that most people in the United States, upwards of 99%, have little or nothing put away for emergencies. When chaos hits and the country's infrastructure crumbles into powder, so does the nation's ability to feed and sustain its systems. Now, citizens, here are 10 things you need, 10 points, to think about when you're faced with defending you and your own. Number 1, what type of self-defense fits you best? Some individuals can make very exotic improvised devices, but everyone that can legally own a firearm should have at least one, preferably many. 2, litigation. This is an extremely sticky point if the society recovers. It should be remembered that, unfortunately, any act of personal self-defense might have to be answered for. 3, Determine your boundaries. Where exactly does a threat cross that threshold in which you engage them? 4, know the seriousness of what's happening. This, of course, ties into the legal ramifications of defending yourself, but especially with just how desperate people will become and try to take what you have. Has the water been turned off? What about the power? Is there any food left in the stores? Are emergency supplies and other foods being shipped in? And if so, how often? Is there rioting in town? Are the masses of people roaming around looking for food? Have there already been homes attacked from mobs? The more you know about the threat evaluation, the better you can prepare your defenses. 5, know what is around you. This includes having some way of seeing a full 360 degrees around your home, up and down, and someone on watch duty most or all of the time, day or night. 6, decide on your barriers. This brings to mind that raw stopping power of a projectile fired, launched, or even thrown towards you and your family. The standard home offers little protection against a bullet traveling over 3,000 feet per second. 7, be ready to take a stand. Unfortunately, many people feel that when the time comes that they can do anything it takes to survive. Yet some will freeze up when faced with pulling a trigger and blowing someone away. 8, I will finish this list, my friends, when we come back because it's that important. This is real truth. This ain't entertainment, my friends. This is your lives. We'll be back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Green Herb.
The people who are controlling the government of America are the same people who are trying to control your family's health care. You can sit quietly by and accept their plan, or you can take responsibility for your health. What would happen if you could no longer obtain the medications you're now taking? Would you be forced to join the ranks of corrupt agents just to purchase the medicine? If you're one of the thousands of concerned citizens who would like to know more about a natural way, God's way to health, drop by the Green Herb for a natural solution and all the information you need to make an intelligent decision. Or go to our website, www.thegreenherb.com. Come by the Green Herb, located in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, on the I-70 Frontage Road North, 1 mile west of Kipling, or call 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. And be sure to listen to the Green Herb Show with Linda and Dr. Cass every Tuesday at 1 o'clock on KHNC.
Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone into the world. By this you will know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have already heard was coming and is now already in the world. 1 John 4:1.
Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal mid-Rosh and fellowship. Beth Messiah congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
Folks, welcome back to Real Truth. I will finish up that list after this video. John Whitehead from the Rutherford Institute. Oh, hang on. I'm told that my guest has arrived. Cody, has my guest indeed arrived? Andrew Gause, are you with us?
But
Andrew, are you on the line?
Keep going, though. You were sounding good.
That would be a first. How you doing?
Good. I'm here. I'm listening.
Excellent. Folks, let me introduce Andrew Gause. He's one of America's foremost experts on the history of money and the U.S. banking system. He's been a guest on Fox Business Network, CNBC, and MSNBC, and heard by millions of radio listeners on programs throughout the United States. Andrew's the author of 2 books on the U.S. monetary system, The Secret World of Money, and Uncle Sam Cooks the Books. He's also the editor of the World of Money newsletter. Andrew, you're talking about Tax-mageddon, and you're asking the question, how will the coming tax hikes affect the economy, your investments, and your pocketbook? Let's begin by defining Tax-mageddon. What do you mean?
Well, a whole raft of new taxes, in addition to increasing the individual income tax rates. Well, if we stick with that for just a moment, you know, we hear Obama talking about tax the rich, yeah, pay their fair share, okay. His tax increase on the rich, anyone on the top end of the scale who was paying 35% will now pay 39%. So that's a 10% tax increase. But at the bottom of the scale, if you're making the low end of the economic scale and you're paying 10% right now in tax, your rate goes to 15%, the equivalent of a 50% tax increase for those that can least afford it. So that's first. Income tax increases across the board starting in January. Second, the expiration or the allowing of the Bush tax cuts to expire. These were temporary tax cuts. I love it. When they pass a tax increase, it stays from now on until they take action to remove it. But when they pass a tax cut, it always has a sunset provision. And President Bush's sunset provision said that his tax cuts would expire this year. So that means the capital gains rate is going to go from 15 to 20%. And then when you tack in the 3.8% surcharge on all investment income, another new tax, suddenly your capital gains rate goes from 15 to 23.8%, effective January 1st, 2013. What does that mean for investments? So simply this, if you have an investment and it's appreciated, if you sell it on December 31st, you'll pay 15% tax. If you wait until January 1st, you'll pay nearly 24%. So every financial planner, every accountant across America is advising their clients to sell their appreciated property in the fourth quarter of 2012. And with everybody selling, I don't even want to think about what that's going to do to the typical investment portfolio.
It's going to be a horror. Let's jump to a slightly different topic. You write about 20 new or higher taxes mandated by Obamacare. I've heard people in the mainstream media say that Obamacare is the biggest tax increase in this nation's history. True or not?
Correct. Yes, absolutely true. In fact, I have a cousin who has a special needs child, and I know it touches everyone's family. Everyone knows someone with a special needs child. And it seems as though the way that those folks have gotten by is through this health savings plan, where you could take a portion of your pre-tax money at work and devote that strictly to health care. And for a special needs child, that includes schooling and any medical care, anything that's done to improve their lot in life. I know my cousin, he takes about $10,000 of his pay, which he has been spending on his daughter for years, and he's been taking that in pre-tax money and then devoting that to her care. Now, Obama limits that in 2013 to $2,500. So that means the other $7,500 that he spent on his daughter last year, he's going to now have to pay tax on before he can spend it through his health savings account. So that's, of course, a hidden increase. The fact that the unreimbursed medical expenses, same, again, special needs children, a lot of their care is outside of the traditional health insurance plans. And so, you know, in the past you could deduct anything over $7,500 to the extent that it was 2% of your adjusted gross income. Now that number goes to $10,000. So another $2,500 he'll have to come up out of his pocket before he can deduct any against his income. So these little chipping taxes, in one form or another, are just going to eat the substance out of America's ability to pay.
Did Americans know that Obama was going to be doing all this before the last presidential election? Was he upfront about any of this?
Of course not. In fact, I have a video that I posted on my Facebook page of President Obama saying if you make $250,000 or less, not a single tax will be raised on you, not a single increase in a single area, no income tax, no capital gains, nothing. And clearly, when you take the lowest income earners in this country and increase their taxes by 50%, while you're only taxing your rich buddies another 10%, I don't see how that's anything but pandering. And quite honestly, going back on his word, I don't want to say an outright lie because,
why not?
They say things during the campaign that they're allowed to restructure later. But fact is, President Obama did say that anyone making under $250,000 would see no new taxes.
I will say that he lied. I have no problem saying that whatsoever. All the economic carnage that's happening in Europe, how is it affecting us?
Well, it affects us because 25% of the profit of the S&P comes from our European trading. Additionally, without telling us, the Federal Reserve has been buying these worthless European bonds and putting them in the coffers of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Now, that means that the money that they create to buy these bonds is out there circulating and competing with money that you spend, that you earn every week. So what's going to happen? Prices are going to rise. Gas is going to rise. And additional price increases across the spectrum as a result of all this new money entering circulation. So if the Federal Reserve is going to take the view that we don't need quantitative easing here in the United States, but we're going to do it in Europe with American money, my goodness, how far do they have to go to bail out the European community? My estimation is somewhere between $700 billion and $1 trillion will come out of the Federal Reserve and make its way into the European banking community.
How much help do Americans get if Romney becomes president?
Well, it's certainly the lesser of two evils. I don't know that Mr. Romney's going to do anything to bring jobs back to the United States. I haven't heard either of these candidates talking about this bogus fair trade nonsense. We need to stop letting other countries dump their goods here in the United States. But one of the things I found most interesting in what you were saying was, my grandfather used to say this: if these guys, meaning Congress, had to spend real money, meaning gold and silver coins, they could never do what they're doing. Right. And that is so true. Binding them with the chains of the Constitution was the best thing we could have done. And here, I know that there's some confusion about what the right to bear arms means. But when you look at that Article 1, Section 8, where it says, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debt, how do you misunderstand that? And by delinking the dollar from what it is, gold or silver, then we've allowed the Fed to create as many dollars as they want. And when I think of Grandpa, he left me a silver quarter, and it's a 1964 silver quarter. And when he was using it in 1964, it would buy him a gallon of gas. Well, today, it's worth $5.16. Hey, it'll still buy a gallon of gas. That's what's wrong with it. It's our money that they've perverted more than anything else.
All right, Andrew, thanks very much for joining us. My friends, Andrew Goss, find him on the Internet. He's got a wealth of information, and man, do we ever need it. We'll be back with more.
The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath. If catastrophe struck, would your family be prepared? Are you confident you wouldn't react in a panic? Is there one place to get all of your emergency supplies? Ferris Survival encourages you to have confidence through preparation, not panic through crisis. Ferris Survival, located at 3366 South Broadway, is a professional, reputable, full-service business providing quality, realistic preparedness supplies at an affordable price. Go online, stop by, or call 303-781-0343. Ferris Survival.
If you're spending hard-earned money on supplements, you need to know about BioSuperfood because you're probably shortchanging yourself on nutrition and value. If you're buying products claiming to provide DNA protection from radiation, you're getting ripped off by inferior copycat products because there's no other product developed or researched like BioSuperfood. BioSuperfood is one complete superfood product that addresses radiation poisoning, allergies, arthritis, diabetes, high blood pressure, and other degenerative diseases. BioSuperfood helps digestion, decreases pain and inflammation, increases flexibility, improves heart health and brain function. It boosts your immune system and even inhibits the AIDS virus and cancerous cells. It's an antibacterial, antifungal, and anti-inflammatory. BioSuperfood is not another supplement. It's a whole food and contains over 5,000 nutrients. Call now and ask about your special discounts on your BioSuperfood purchase at 303-257-7576. That's 303-257-7576 or biosuperfood@hotmail.com.
Folks, welcome back once again. My thanks to Andrew Gause for joining us. If what he said scared you, my friends, good. Here's John Whitehead from the Rutherford Institute. Okay, take two. John Whitehead from the Rutherford Institute talking about the corporate takeover of America. You will also find the link to this on my Facebook page. Here we go.
We handle a lot of constitutional cases here at the Rutherford Institute. Usually when we research how legislation comes into being that affects First Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights in our Constitution, or other key things that we as American citizens feel are important, usually we find that somewhere behind this legislation there is some lobbyist who has had access to some government official, a politician that brings it into being. A recent conference in Williamsburg, Virginia, really highlights what we're seeing happen in this country today, and that is the emergence of the corporate state, where basically corporations are making the decisions, and those people that we elect are not really making the basic decisions of government. For 4 days, from July 12th to July 15th, 2012, America's governors, hosted by Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, gathered in Williamsburg, Virginia for the National Governors Association, better known as the NGA. It's an annual summer meeting. While there, the governors and their staffs were treated to amusement parks, historical sites, championship golf courses, five-star dining, and a rousing fireworks finale. Much of this was paid for by corporations eager to spend time with the nation's most powerful government chief executives. Amazingly, none of this is open to the public, us, the American citizens, who, again, elect these politicians, our governors. The only people who had access to the governors during this time, and usually at the governor's mansion, at the White House, as we find, a number of the cases we're involved in, are the corporations and their lobbyists. The National Governors Association, or the NGA, is an organization that allows corporations to pay a certain amount of money to belong, up to $20,000 annually, to participate. Large corporations such as General Electric, Microsoft, ExxonMobil, Ford, Bank of America, and the United Health Group all participate, and they regularly hold closed-door luncheons for their what they call their corporate fellows, or people who pay to belong to them, and then they give them access to the people we elect to governmental positions. What we're seeing happen to the government of the United States, the federal government, the state governments, local governments, is the corporate buyout of our governmental bodies. What we find in our research and what surfacing in a number of my commentaries, which you should go online at rutherford.org and read, is that the corporations have moved into the highest levels of government and the lowest levels of government. And they're basically, through these kind of events that I talk about in Williamsburg, Virginia, where they have amusements, going to amusement parks, fireworks, banquets, they're buying government officials and influencing how they vote. When these politicians run from higher government, we know that those particular organizations are still supporting them. In fact, the two people running for president, President Obama and Mitt Romney, believe it or not, many of the corporations supporting Obama are also giving money to Mitt Romney. This is very, very dangerous in my opinion, because corporations exist for one thing. The bottom line is money. And unfortunately, there are many greedy people out there that don't care about civil liberties and rights. and they're cutting off our access to government. Remember a couple years back when people were going to town hall meetings? Well, we don't really have access to that anymore. Most of those town hall meetings, by the way, are occurring over telephones, and some people, and some of our politicians are actually charging people fees if they want to come to a town hall meeting. If our government means anything, it is this, that we have a right to access to our politicians, to speak to them, to confront them if necessary. What happens when the corporations are buying them out? The corporations are getting the access to them. We're not getting the access, not even at town hall meetings. This means that our so-called democratic form of government has been bought out by the corporate state.
My friends, go to Rutherford.org. It is a great organization, great website, great information that we all need to look at. What do you need to survive? Let me finish up this list. This is when everything hits the fan. Number 8, be prepared for unconventional attacks. Desperate people will do incredibly stupid and irrational acts that defy reason. If a mob discovers a well-fortified home with food in it, they might try to actually light the entire structure on fire. Number 9, remember you have the advantage. Mobs will often try to frighten and intimidate people out of their home and or try to force you to divvy up all that you have. Don't let them scare you. Those supplies are your lifeline, and without them, you'll be reduced to almost the same level of those roaming around aimlessly that have not prepared. Number 10, avoidance of any showdown. Everyone will be better off if neighbors and others decide not to storm your home for food and supplies. Conceal that you have anything is crucial. Remember that the very first trespasser that is shot lets others know that you have something worth fighting for, so use good discretion. Let's move on. Item from the Jewish World Review, Frank Gaffney, Jr. reporting. The truism that you know someone by the company they keep has rarely been more true than in respect to the Obama administration and its burgeoning ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamists. Just last weekend, Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton became the latest member of Team Obama to consort with sworn enemies of the United States when she sat down with the newly installed president of Egypt, Mohamed Morsi, a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. Despite official media and academic efforts to portray Mr. Morsi, and for that matter the Muslim Brotherhood more generally, as the kind of people with whom the United States can deal safely in the evolving Middle East and here, the determination of these Islamists to impose their supremacist Islamic doctrine of Sharia worldwide could not be more palpable. Their hostility to America, Israel, Western civilization, and other infidels goes back to the founding of the organization in 1928 and is rooted in its guiding program, Sharia, and it is absolute and unwavering. Those who say otherwise are deluding themselves or deliberately deceiving others. Although it cannot be confirmed that this writing, Mrs. Clinton presumably was accompanied on her travels as usual, particularly in the by her Deputy Chief of Staff, Huma Abedin. That would be all the more probable given that Ms. Abedin has myriad family ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. For example, her mother, Saleha Abedin, is a leader of the organization's secretive women's auxiliary, the Muslim Sisterhood, in which she serves along with Mr. Morsi's wife, Nagla Ali Mahmoud. The presence of an individual with such associations in the most senior ranks of the State Department at a moment when the Obama administration is assiduously engaging with the Muslim Brotherhood has raised concerns on Capitol Hill, unquote. Yeah, they've raised concerns right here also, my friends. We'll be back.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The feasts of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, these are my feasts. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1 through 3. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188.
Welcome back to Real Truth. We've got 4 minutes left. Let's hit it. This comes from netrightdaily.com. David Bozeman reporting. He starts with a quote from the AARP Bulletin from June. Higher taxes have discouraged public consumption of whiskey and tobacco. Now it's sugar's turn. Now here's David Bozeman reporting. It's time we started calling liberal Democratic policymakers what they are. We all too frequently lament the ever-reaching nanny state, but that term violates a cherished cultural staple. Nannies are Mary Poppins or such maternal substitutes as the TV character played by Fran Drescher. Statists are not nannies, they are bullies. Consider the following. Deval Patrick, Democrat, current Massachusetts governor, recently defended Obamacare in a conference call with reporters, referring to the law not as a tax but as a penalty on, quote, freeloaders who take advantage of emergency rooms, roughly 1 or 2% of Americans. Such uninhibited, feral denunciations of uninsured Americans is curious and out of character for modern Democrats. Freeloaders? Where is all this compassion for the little guy that we're always hearing the Democrats boast about? And we just overhauled our nation's healthcare system to deal with 2% of the population. And furthermore, since when do liberals harbor such animosity toward freeloaders? Liberalism has thrived for the last 50-plus years by transferring wealth and securing a permanent dependent class. Then there's the war on obesity. If you think this is all about Oreos and 32-ounce Cokes, then I'll cite for you a recent HBO documentary, The Weight of the Nation, produced in conjunction with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The target? Fruit juice. And you thought that bottle of Ocean Spray added health kick bragging rights to your diet. According to pediatric obesity specialist Robert Lustig, quote, juice is just like soda, unquote. Yes, according to the experts, fruit juice is full of sugar and lacks all the nutritional value of real fruit. Let's just hope Mayor Bloomberg in New York hasn't heard about this one. In truth, it's not the obese who are the gravest threats to our pocketbooks. In a free competitive market, those who make foolish choices, and obesity is not always the result of choice, would pay the penalty through higher premiums. But the pertinent point here is an overall pattern that's become glaringly obvious. Freeloaders, the obese, while space will not allow a thorough psychological assessment of the liberal mind, their compulsion to target and regulate the most benign activities of everyday Americans suggests a loathing of the very people they purport to champion. While it's too simplistic to suggest that all liberals loathe average Americans, the fact remains that one does not seek to fundamentally transform a people or a nation that he loves. Item from westernjournalism.com. During an interview with longtime ally CBS News anchor Charlie Rose, Barack Obama and Michelle lamented having failed to adequately relate the true extent of the president's genius to the American public. Quote, the nature of this office is to tell a story to the American people that gives them a sense of unity and purpose and optimism, not just to think about getting the policy right, said Obama to the reliably sympathetic Rose. In Obama's mind, this means that though he's worked to add trillions to the debt, keep unemployment high, and destroy any chance of economic recovery, if only he had done a better job packaging and presenting these willful disasters as triumphs, his campaign wouldn't be in trouble, and the American people would properly appreciate his tireless efforts on their behalf. My friends, I'll stop there just because I'm on the verge of puking. I've never encountered anyone in public life who matches the arrogance of Barack Obama, which is in direct proportion, obvious proportion to the horrifying job he's done as president. More Real Truth tomorrow, my friends. I'll be here in 23 hours. I trust that you will be too. In the meantime, check out my Facebook page. Hasta lumbago.